So, we've talked about the classes in PvP, we've broken down the subclasses we had access to in the alpha. Let's talk about how the classes performed in PvE. So that's story missions, patrols, strikes, basically anything that wasn't competitive multiplayer. I thought Warlock was the strongest, with Titan in the middle and Hunter the weakest. So let's go into why. Warlock during the alpha was a damage machine with well-placed grenades and Nova Bombs. Nova Bomb has a huge diameter, it can be safely launched from range, and easily blast through most targets. The one thing that was not so great was that it dealt void damage, and in the alpha there weren't any enemies that were weak to void damage, so it was mainly for, oh man, big group of enemies just spawned, but that's really how it's supposed to be used. When we eventually find enemies weak to void damage, it'll get even better. You're not going to be using Nova Bomb on one guy, unless it's a boss, but even then I'd really refrain from using it on bosses because you don't really generate many orbs of light and it's much better for ad control. Energy Drain, I'm still not 100% on the mechanic. I know you're supposed to get grenade cooldown reduction, but I need to look more into it. Their grenade was great because it could either do insane damage or great crowd control. The grenade I'm talking about is Vortex Grenade. The AI in the game is incredibly smart. You can see in this clip where I throw a grenade on the ground, expecting a bunch of dudes to just run through it. Not only do you see one on the opposite side stop moving as to not walk through it and get hurt, but all the other enemies actually came around the grenade and flanked me. So what's great about Vortex Grenade is that you can use it to zone out enemies, or if there's a big cluster, you just nuke the hell out of them. This thing does a lot of damage. Another great thing is that it explodes on impact, it's not going to bounce around. So if you fought a Devil Walker with a Vortex Grenade, you know what I mean. It just ticked for a lot of damage. Warlocks were the kings of AoE. While we're talking about the Warlock, let's go into Void Walker a little bit. So grenades, I thought Scatter Grenade was pretty underwhelming. I'd much rather use Vortex. Axion Bolt we'll have to see, but it sounds like it can be pretty good. Your jump, I'd say, is personal preference, although I will say that I thought the Warlock's vertical movement skill was the least fun to use for me. It just felt weird using. A lot of the times I wouldn't realize that I'm still just flying into the air, and that definitely caused some deaths. Blink will be interesting to see, and I think I might prefer it to Glide. We'll see. Nova Bomb, we have Vortex, Shatter, and Lance. I think Shatter might end up taking the edge in terms of damage. It all depends on if the smaller bolts do less damage as a result. Vortex Bomb is just basically a giant version of Vortex Grenade. It's situational, but very good, where Shatter Bomb might be more for trash mobs. Lance is easily a PvP skill. I would probably never use that in PvE. Energy Drain, I will be sticking with Soul Rip for more Nova Bombs. Being able to chain your supers with your fire team is so crucial to success, and being able to super more often is going to be really important. Surge seems more like a PvP skill to me. Lifesteal definitely has some utility in PvE if you're running less recovery or armor than you normally would, like if you went Speed Lock or something like that. Lifesteal versus Surge for PvP, I'd probably go Lifesteal depending on how much health it restores. It says significant, so I expect a lot. Arcane and Order stat columns, I'll be speccing more into armor and recovery rather than speed, but I'm going to try and keep it close. I value armor and recovery way more than I value speed. I'd prefer to not die in the first place as opposed to having to run away, and stuff in strikes will really mess your day up. First passive bonus is a choice of Vortex Mastery, Bent Gravity, and the Hunger. The Hunger I'm basically ignoring until I learn more about the Energy Drain mechanic. Bent Gravity is good, but if you're rolling with Vortex Grenade and Vortex Bomb, then Mastery is the obvious choice. Final passive, I'm going with Bloom over Angry Magic and Embrace the Void. Angry Magic is an amazing PvP skill, although there's definitely some utility in PvE if you're not that confident in your aiming. Embrace the Void, still need to teach myself more about Energy Drain before I come to a conclusion. So Titans were middle of the pack, but I placed them above the Hunter because Fist of Havoc has AoE damage. They're an arc damage based class, and Fallen Captains were a huge pain in the ass, so they definitely have an edge there as well. Fist of Havoc is good, but the main issue stems from the fact that you need to be close to your enemies for it to really be effective. If you're in melee range of enemies, bad things are typically happening to you. Fist of Havoc is not good to use against major or ultra enemies, aka yellow HP bars. Against red HP bars, they'll fall right over. If you watched my Titan breakdown, my recommended build is the Support Damage Titan. The build focuses on protecting your teammates when things get messy. If there's a lot of guys rushing your teammates, Fist of Havoc Flashbang Grenade enables your teammates to retreat safely. It's going to take a lot of practice with the Titan to really get familiar with the situations where it's appropriate to use Fist of Havoc and still come out alive. Flashbang Grenade, I think it's overrated in PvP, but really effective in PvE. The blind lasts a pretty long time. Unfortunately, the grenade can doink off of surfaces, so there's always a chance of it just not even hitting anything. Storm Fist is as basic of an attack as you can get. It deals arc damage, very good for getting rid of Fallen Captain shields, but if you're meleeing Fallen Captain shields, you're probably not in the best position. So let's talk about Striker. Grenades, you had Flashbang, Pulse, and Lightning. Pulse I wasn't a huge fan of, although it does explode on impact like Vortex Grenade. It's basically Vortex but deals arc damage and doesn't tick as often. I don't know why I didn't like it since it's basically the same thing. I guess I just didn't use it enough. Flashbang, I mentioned that earlier, it's good for peeling enemies. Lightning Grenade, we're going to have to see how it operates, how long it lasts, how much damage it does, how often it ticks, how big the range is, but I can definitely see it being good. Lift is dealer's choice. I'll probably stick with increased height, but there's still Catapult to check out. I liked Lift more than I liked Glide. It just felt better despite them being almost the same. Fist of Havoc upgrades all seem really good. Aftermath and Shockwave just farther enhance the damage, and given how the AI operates, Aftermath would be great for zone control. Hell, Aftermath and a Defender Titan shield in the same spot is the ultimate safe zone. Death from Above, easily the best skill for PvP, although it definitely has some utility in PvE, makes it much easier to use if you're okay on zone control or if you have another Striker Titan doing zone control. Storm Fist, I'm rolling with Illuminated, and that's because I'm not a big fan of Chance to. Overload has a chance to reset the cooldown, Discharge has a chance to deal AoE damage around the target. I'd rather spend my skill point on something that I know will always have an effect as opposed to something that might work. We definitely need to check out the numbers on how often that chance can occur on both skills, but Storm Fist kills significantly reduce the cooldown of Fist of Havoc. Yeah, I'm a fan. Thanks. Once again, I'd prefer my Titan to be tanky, so high armor is a priority for your Titan Codex passive stats. First passive ability bonus, we have Headstrong, Aftermath, and Transfusion. I'll be taking Transfusion because of its utility with Illuminated Storm Fist. Oh, I can punch people to reduce my cooldown in Fist of Havoc and immediately start health regen when I kill with melee? Yeah, I'll take 10 of those, thanks. Headstrong is an excellent PvP skill, definitely has some utility in PvE as well, but if you get Death from Above, I think Headstrong is a waste. Aftermath, I'd say, is almost a must if you get Pulse or Lightning Grenade and Aftermath on Fist of Havoc. Also, just notice there's an inconsistency with the text here. Aftermath says Shock Grenade, but there's no Shock Grenade, it's called Lightning Grenade. Someone call up Bungie. Final tier, Unstoppable, Shoulder Charge, and Juggernaut. This one is tough. They are all really, really good skills. I'd rank Unstoppable and Juggernaut as the same in terms of them both being useful, depending on what you're doing. I guess I would lean Juggernaut because you'll be sprinting way more than you'll be using Fist of Havoc. Shoulder Charge, we need to see how much damage it really does compared to a normal melee attack, but it's definitely really good for PvP. Moving on to the Hunter now, I thought Hunters were easily the weakest. Most of the time, Golden Gun was as effective as getting a headshot on an enemy. If you used Golden Gun on Major or Ultra enemies, it maybe got a kill. If you used it on a Fallen Captain, could not even secure the kill. If you were effective at getting headshots, which really wasn't that hard to do, most enemies were killed in one shot. Golden Gun was just not as useful in the alpha compared to Nova Bomb and Fist of Havoc. Will Golden Gun be more effective against Solar Shield enemies? Yes, but anyone with a solar weapon can deal almost as much damage. A Solar Fusion Rifle would be just as good in terms of damage. Will Golden Gun be more useful later in the game? Maybe. Enemies will definitely get more health, but weapons will become more powerful. Most of the patrol in Alpha was fighting enemies much lower level than you. Equal level enemies are a little tougher to take down, but normally just a couple of extra shots. So, we'll have to see, but I don't have the highest hopes for Golden Gun being as useful as some of the other supers. If it got more shots for PvE only, that would be a decent fix. Maybe bump it to 4 or 5, but still keep it at 3 for PvP. Otherwise, I think they need to pump the damage a bit so that it's actually possible to take down Majors or Ultras, or at least get them low. I know they're supposed to be tough to take down, but 3 full Golden Gun shots should at least get it close, or should be at least more effective than some well-placed fusion rifle shots. Their grenade is alright, Incendiary is awesome if you can get it to connect. Unfortunately, it doesn't explode on impact, so there's a very large potential of it just bouncing off of your target and rolling away. Not to mention the AI is pretty damn good at running away from grenades. Swarm Grenade is amazing for PvP, not so much for PvE. Trip Mine will be my go-to PvE grenade depending on how long it lasts when planted and how much damage it does, but maybe if I stop sucking with Incendiary or there's a lot of solar weak enemies, I would use Incendiary over Trip Mine. Throwing Knife was really only good if you got a headshot kill with it, so if you're really good with it, then it'll definitely serve you well, especially if you spec heavy into it with Knife Juggler and Gambler's Dagger. Otherwise, it has a chance of doing absolutely nothing, while the Titan and Warlock melee are always going to do something, although I do realize that the benefit of the Throwing Knife is range. If Hunters are going to excel at single target damage with their abilities, they need to actually do more damage to single targets than the other classes can. So let's go over their tree. Grenades I pretty much just talked about a minute ago, Incendiary is alright, Swarm is great for PvP, and Trip Mine should be very good for PvE. Their jump was easily my favorite, because it just works. There's no messing around with momentum too much. You know what you're getting when you double jump at any time. You jump again, and that's it. It works, it's great, it's my favorite of the vertical movement skills. Better Control was the weakest of all the skills, I think. The control was pretty good as is. Need to really see the difference in height between triple jump or higher jump to make a final judgment call on that, but I'd probably go triple jump because it's basically higher jump with a toggle instead of it being automatic, so you can control it. Golden Gun skills are Deadeye, Combustion, or Gunfighter. Deadeye, I have no idea what Deadeye is going to do in the grand scheme. It says it increases accuracy, but it's already pretty accurate when you use it, so the verdict is still out on that. Combustion has its uses, but I think incorporating Combustion into Golden Gun would be a great buff for Golden Gun. Might be something that helps it in PvE, since Golden Gun deals no AoE damage right now. Once again, in PvP they'd need to keep it the same as it is right now, or at least reduce the explosion radius depending on the size, but I really don't think Bungie wants to have skills work one way in PvE and another way in PvP. I'll be sticking with Gunslinger. More super usage is always good, but I guess we'll need to see how big the cooldown reduction is. Throwing Knife skills, I don't see Circle of Life being super useful. Generally, you have an idea of what you want to be hitting with Golden Gun before you activate it, so you'll get your shots off well within the 10-second time frame. Not only that, but you have to kill with Throwing Knife, so I don't think Circle of Life does enough to warrant picking it. Incendiary Knife is solid, adds solar damage over time, and Knife Juggler is great if you are really good with the Throwing Knife. The value skyrockets depending on how good you are. Path and Way stats. A Hunter should be focusing more on precision kills to boost their killing potential, so they're not really a frontline role. They should be sticking in the back. I value Armor the least. Any combo of high agility and recovery is good, but I value recovery more than I do agility in general. First passive, Scavenger is a solid PvE pick, more ability usage is always good. Keyhole makes Golden Gun over Penetrate. Once again, something like this would help buff Golden Gun if they just incorporated it into the skill in the first place. Although I think Golden Gun can penetrate to begin with, not 100% sure on that. To me, Keyhole feels too situational to pick up. Gunslinger's Trance probably isn't going to be incredibly useful if you're using a scout rifle or a hand cannon. If you're using full auto, then Trance is great. The more recoil you'll have on your weapon, but of course having high recoil makes getting headshot kills harder to get in the first place. The last passive is between Chain of Woe, Over the Horizon, and Gambler's Dagger. I think Chain of Woe wins the PvE fight. Over the Horizon seems lackluster, as I didn't notice too bad of a range penalty with any gun, much less Golden Gun. Plus, you're likely to be a bit closer to your target for super usage in order to ensure that you actually hit the target. At least that's what I'd be doing. Gambler's Dagger is much more of a trash mob passive, but is very good in PvP too. Like I said earlier, the better you are with the Throwing Knife, the more valuable those kind of skills become. So those are my thoughts on the classes in the alpha and how I think their skills are going to be for the rest of the game. These are definitely just my opinions. Obviously, some testing is going to need to happen to figure out the numbers on stuff like chance-based bonuses. As usual, you can find me on Twitter at DadosDestiny, Facebook.com/DadoDoesDestiny, and positive ratings are always cool with me. Got maybe 1 or 2 more videos on the way, and that will basically conclude everything on the alpha. We are 3.5 weeks away from the beta, at least for you PlayStation folk, so hang in there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.